Today we enter the studio. For what reason? Today we enter the studio to capture the ocean's apex predator. Oh, wrong one. This one. I forgot what else to say. The canvas of pure drama, intense, calculated beauty. We are ready to execute a absolute artistic precision. Oops. Sorry. And there goes precision. Only deep breaths. Clearly, we're doing this the fun way. Clearly, we're doing this the fun way. Well, we hope. Probably the messy way, but you want to do this. West Coast ocean, foggy morning, and orcas, blackfish, Willie, free Willie. Let's do it. Let's quit messing around. Let's go paint, okay? So I'm just going to start by painting this canvas. I'm going to use burnt umber. I'm going to try a darker background color instead of just plain white. I saw somebody else do it. I'm not sure why, but we'll see how it works. Some people like doing that or prefer it than to a white canvas. I guess I'll see. Gonna start by painting a mountain. Now that we've got the background done, I got a very light grayish blue, and I'm just making this mountain. Make your mountains wherever you want on your canvas, at the top of the canvas. I've never painted fog before, but we got to get the mountain in first. Just dab the paint on. I'm just sort of punching it into the canvas. And then we'll get the fog going on around that mountain. We'll be doing this painting in layers, so each layer I'm going to let it dry. I got excited and started painting the second mountain before I started painting the fog. So don't do this right here, because we will just be painting over it anyways. But it's still all right because it gave me an idea of where the second mountain was going to come in on the canvas. And you want this second mountain to be darker, the same color as the first mountain, but darker. So I just added a tiny little bit of black to it. Not too much black. Black paint is very overpowering and can really take over the color really fast. And yeah, same thing. I totally forgot about the fog. I don't know where I was so into painting the mountains. So as you can see, each mountain I had just added a bit more black. But again, it's okay. I felt like I was screwing up, but it wasn't. It ended up turning out really good in the end anyways. So if you get excited painting the mountain and forget your fog, don't worry about it. So I let that dry, and to do the fog, I'm just using plain titanium white paint and lots of water. So I've watered it down considerably, and I'm just using a bigger, fluffier brush that I have, and just gonna gently brush it in wherever I want. And you want lots of water, but not so much water that it's running down the canvas. So make sure you still have control over the white paint. And I'm just touching up my middle mountain there. So you're going to have to do this with all three mountains because we got excited and painted the mountains too soon. But that's all right. So you're going to put the fog all over that one mountain and then paint the second mountain on top of in front of it. On top and in front of the first mountain. They're zoomed in a little bit better. And then when that dries, we're going to do the fog again. So I thought I didn't have a really fluffy brush, so I found this old makeup brush that I've never used. And it's fluffy. It's almost like a fan brush. I'm going to try doing the fog with this makeup brush. We'll see what happens. It was good in some ways and not good in other ways. So that coverage right there was great. It held too much water though. I landed up by having to dab the water off. But like I said, I don't have a lot of expensive gear. I'm just making do with what I've got. So we're just putting the fog all over that second mountain again and around the first mountain. And then we're going to touch up the first mountain and keep going with the fog. Or the mist. And just going in circles. You don't want your mist to look like it has straight lines. Because mist sort of is fluffy all over the place. So touching up mountain number 3 again. Giving it some good solid lines. Again, just adding a bit more black to the color. It looks like I've added a lot of black, but I actually haven't. When the paint dries, it will actually dry quite a bit lighter. And the fog will be covering it up quite a bit. And again, I'm going to let each layer dry before I do the fog. I used a hair dryer on not on a really high heat setting, just sort of a medium heat setting to dry each layer. You don't have to, you could just let it sit and air dry. But for the sake of the video, I used my hair dryer. That layer's dry, and I'm just going to come in with the fog again with the titanium white and water. Again, I'm trying another different brush, just trying to get the technique. And we're going to have a bit more titanium white than water now, because along the water, the foreground, the bottom of the painting is going to be the ocean. And I'm just going to keep going over the fog, and I'm going to keep letting it dry and then adding another layer. So it'd be titanium white and water, let it dry. Titanium white and water, let it dry. Just keep doing this over and over again. And I'm just going to keep going until the fog looks foggy-ish. I'm bringing the fog up between the mountains and down along the left side of them there. I'm trying to make it look as if the fog is rolling in from like a mountain fjord into the open ocean. And the sky in this corner here, we're going to cover that in titanium white and a bit of water, watered down. Just giving the fog some misty lines. If you ever see the breeze going through the fog, you will see misty lines. And this looks like I'm just covering everything up. It doesn't look like it's going to be very good, but trust me, trust the process. As you go along, things will start coming together and they will start looking better and better. So don't give up on the painting yet. Here I'm using a dry brush, and I'm just going to gently go over the wet fog paint and just dry brush it. Make it look a little more. I'm just trying to erase some of the painting lines, so you can use a dry brush. Then I'm coming in with another mountain in the background, the faraway mountain, so it'll be the light colored blue again. And I'm going to come in from the left side of the painting. So these will be the mountains on either side of the ocean fjord. And I think I did the same thing here. I got excited, painted the mountains, forgot about the fog. I don't know how I forgot about the fog, but that's okay. We're establishing where the mountains are and where they're going to be. And then we can continue doing the layers of the fog, the mountain, the fog, the mountain. Wet, dry, wet, dry. So I'm coming in here with the foreground mountain, the darkest one. Again, same thing as the other foreground mountain, just adding a bit more black. Establishing where it's going to be. Here I am making out like I meant to do this, but I actually meant to put fog in between it, but that's all right. That's why this is the amateur paint-in, not the professional paint-in. I'm learning as I go. And like I said, I've never painted fog before, so this is my first time. See, the painting is actually starting to come together. There we go. We'll get in with the fog. Get that coming in from the background up between those two mountains. And it's all right that I'm going over the top of one mountain, because mountains get covered in fog too. Again, I'm just experimenting with the brushes. That makeup brush worked pretty good for certain parts, but I do come in with a smaller brush and more concentrated titanium white to make this fog look more foggy. Now that we've got a layer of fog in from the farthest away mountain on the left, we're just going to retouch up that second mountain with a slightly darker color. Same shade of color, but darker. And put that in, and then we'll let that dry again. I couldn't decide the shape of the mountain, but that's okay. We'll let that dry. And now we'll come back in with some more titanium white and water and continue with the fog. Again, it was mountain fog, mountain fog, mountain fog. And now that the fog is getting closer to the ocean, where the ocean is going to be, the bottom of the painting, the fog is going to be thicker and more opaque, less see-through. And then when that dries, we're going to come in with the final mountain in the foreground on the left side. final mountain. In the foreground, this will be the darkest mountain on the left side. And we're just going to establish where it is, where the shoreline is going to be. And then we'll let that dry and we'll come in with more fog. We're going to be dealing a lot with the fog, which is the titanium white, with water. Less water, the thicker the fog will look. Now we're coming in. Now we're mostly going to be concentrating on the fog from here on in and going up the fjord and around the mountains. And if you get the fog in a spot where you don't want, you can always get a slightly damp, clean brush and dab where the fog is that you don't want. Or if it's slightly dried, you can scrub it and it won't ruin the paint of the mountains. You won't take that paint off. That paint is already solidly dried, especially if you used a hairdryer like I did. So I'm swirling the brush. Fog tends to swirl rather than have straight lines. Titanium white tends to be transparent, more on the transparent side than the opaque side. So it's good for layering. So we're going to do the ocean now. I'm going to load up my brush with some white and some dark blue. That's dark blue with a little bit of black. And it doesn't matter if the paint streaks, you actually want it to do that. So I didn't mix the paint, I just put the paint on the brush. I had one side of the brush some white, one side of the brush blue, and I dabbed the blue in a tiny bit of black, and then I just put it on the canvas. And you can swish it up as far into the fog, because we're going to go as far as the coastline, and then we're going to touch up the fog again once we get the ocean established. And the ocean looks dark and light depending on how the sunshine is shining on it. So you definitely want to keep those streaky bits in there. So we let the ocean dry, and we're going to come in with the fog again, another layer, and then we're going to bring the fog over the ocean. And you can have it more transparent over the ocean, but I kind of want to obscure the shoreline, make it look like the fog is really intense there. And just keep working the fog until you've got it where you like it, where you think it looks good for your painting. And fog will be different on every painting. I just want to go up, highlight that the fog has gone up between every mountain. And that skyline up at the top there, we're going to be covering that in fog. Of course, you want to have a clean paintbrush. So I'm doing the sky. I'm just mostly doing white. Apologies if my hand keeps getting in the way. Poor camera angle. I couldn't figure out how to change the camera, so I'll figure that out for the next video. Just painting the edges of the painting. So I'm using a dry brush. I'm just using a dry brush and smoothing out the edges of the paint. And then I add a bit more wet paint, and then I use the dry clean brush to spread it around and make it look more misty and natural. just to establish the outlines of the trees, of the mountains in the mist. I'm using a very slightly dampened, very clean square brush. And I'm just going over the edges of the mountain and cleaning up the fog there with that. Almost like taking the paint off, but not really. I'm just coming in here with more white, less water, and just doing a sweep, and then I'll go over that with a dry brush again. And it's okay to bring the white forward over the ocean because the mist and the fog. So I had an idea of using carbon paper to get my whales, because I was really nervous about painting the whales. So I drew them on a piece of paper, and then I found a piece of carbon paper, and I'm just going to trace the whales through the carbon paper onto my canvas. Now that the canvas is dry, you got to wait till that's dry. So I'm just going to do both of those whales with a pencil, and the carbon paper will leave the mark. Then I can just paint it straight through, like as if it's paint by numbers without the numbers. So there's the whales. And sorry folks, I forgot to put the camera on when I started painting them. But I'm still painting them, so don't worry. It's just black and white using a small brush. And just keep touching it up there. Now that that's dry, I got to start making the water around the whales. So when they pop up and the waves around them, so I'm just going to dab the titanium white, and then I'll come in with a little bit of blue in that white, just like a pin dot of blue, just so you could see the different hues in the water from the whale popping up. I'm going to add a little bit of black in front of the whale in the water, just make that the shadow of the whale above the water, and possibly the body of the whale below the water, darkening up the water. So I'm just adding straight titanium white and then using a dry brush to soften it up and spread it around. Well, I really wasn't that sure or positive about this painting because I've never painted orca whales before. I've also never painted fog before. So this is my first time doing this. So what do you think? It turned out pretty good. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you follow along and paint along and like, comment, share, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye.